everybody. How are you all doing? I am Brooke Lively, and we're here to talk about the ROI of marketing. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things first. I am in Colorado, so as long as I was in Colorado, I figured we'd do this outside. And you can see the river. You can probably hear it. And we live in a very narrow valley, and there's only one way to get to the airport, and it's up the very narrow valley. So if a plane flies over, just bear with us for a second and it'll head on to the airport. All right, let's talk about our agenda today. It's going to, there we go. All right, the agenda. We want to talk about what conversion rates are, why it's important to qualify clients, how to set appointments, getting your consults to show up, converting in the room, and then how we use all of this to get more clients and spend less money. So if anybody has any questions at any time, just put them in and I'll see them and I'll answer them as we go along. All right, what is a conversion rate? This is really kind of the foundation of everything that we're talking about today. We're CFOs, we don't do marketing. I don't care if you're advertising on TV or you're doing print ads or pay-per-click. I just want to measure the results. I want to look at the conversion rate because it gives us a ton of information. So let's define a conversion rate. A conversion rate is the percentage of people who take a desired action. And in the case of a law firm, it's hiring the firm, right? New clients. That's what we all want. So when I talk to most attorneys and I ask them about their conversion rate, they say, oh, my conversion rate is 80%. But really what they're talking about is the conversion rate, like from the sales call in the room to client. That's only one small part of your conversion rate. Your conversion rate actually starts the first time you are contacted by a potential new client. So for most people, that's when their phone rings and a receptionist answers the phone, okay? If we start to measure a conversion rate from that point, we will get a ton of information. And with that information, we can make decisions. What marketing is working, what marketing isn't working. Is it a problem with our messaging? Is it a problem with our delivery? Is it a problem with our office? Oh, there's the first plane. Sorry. It's a holiday weekend in a resort town, so there you go. Okay, so let's really kind of break down the conversion rate because we want to look at the conversion in each different part of your sales cycle. So think about your sales cycle from the time they contact you until they either hire or die, right? Because that's what we're looking for. So the first part is when they call, right? Somebody picks up the phone and they have a potential client on the line saying, I'm calling because. You need to ask some qualifying questions on this call. And what you want to ask about are, well, let me back up, sorry. The questions should be asked by your receptionist. You need to train the receptionist or whoever it is that answers the phone to ask these questions. And you need to empower that person because they are the first point of contact with a potential client, but they are also the least expensive person that can save you time and money down the line. So if she goes through some qualifying questions, and I'll talk about those in a second, if she goes through some qualifying questions and they don't check all the boxes, empower him or her to say, you know what, we're not the right fit for you. Let me refer you off to this other person. But give her the power and the ability to do that. So one of the things that people ask us a lot are, what are these qualifying questions? Well, you want to do a couple of things. You want to get some basic information, like, you know, what's your name? And how do we contact you again? And of course, we want to know, how did you hear about us? Because this is about the ROI of marketing. We need to know why your clients are getting to you. And then you want to start asking questions about whether or not this is your ideal client. The first one's going to be, what type of case do you have? If you're a divorce firm or a family law firm and someone calls you about a DUI, they're not your client. They are, however, part of your conversion rate because they've called you, they've contacted you, and we need to know, even if it's for a DUI, a speeding ticket, white collar crime, a tax problem, whatever it is, and you're a divorce firm, we still need to know that that person called because that goes to our message. Our message is off somewhere if we're getting a lot of those calls. Another question we really like to ask is, what prompted you to call us today? So let's say you are a estate planning firm. If someone calls and says, my husband and I are taking a trip on Tuesday and we don't have wills and we don't feel comfortable leaving our young children at home, not knowing that they'll be taken care of if something happens to us on this 9-hour flight to Europe. If you're an estate planning firm that only works with tax planning, they're not your client, right? I had a conversation not too long ago with Alexis Neely, and a bunch of you probably know her, and we were talking about her ideal client. And she said, I want to work with law firms who do estate planning for families with small children. She knows exactly who that is. And in the first couple of minutes of any phone call with a prospect, if they're calling to say, we're a divorce firm and we want to learn better marketing, she knows you're not my client. And she can stop the conversation, or in this case, your receptionist can stop the conversation and not spend any more time meeting with or talking to someone who's not your ideal client. Other good questions are, do you have deadlines? Are you the decision maker? And this is actually my favorite one. How many times have you all been in a sales call and you get to the end and they seem like a perfect client, they're going to be great, you're going to love working with them, you can totally help them with whatever their matter is, and they're like, well, I have to talk to my husband, my wife, my boss, my dead grandmother, whatever it is. Okay, maybe not dead grandmother, but you want to make sure that those people are in the sales call. So we always encourage our clients to talk about the fact that very often there are multiple people that will go into making this decision. And when we schedule a sales call, we want to make sure that everyone can be in the room. It makes your conversions faster, right? And the faster you convert, the more money you can make. Basically, all of these qualifying questions are trying to screen for your ideal client. So it's worth your time to sit down and make a list. Who are your ideal clients? What traits do they all share? And then design some questions around those traits. I have a list of basic qualifying questions that are pretty generic. They'll work for any kind of firm. There's a section in there specifically for divorce, for tax, for employment, for corporate. But I'm happy to send that to you. After the webinar today, we'll send out an email. There will be a copy of the recording of the webinar today, and there will be a link so you can actually download that. So, does anybody have any questions about how to qualify clients? Nobody's asking questions. All right, so we're gonna move on. So we actually come to the first conversion rate, because when we talk about your conversion cycle, we're talking about a series of conversion rates. So the first stage is call to qualify potential client. We want to make sure at least 40 to 45% of the people that call you are right for your firm, okay? Everybody's gonna get the call, I got arrested for DUI. Yes, sir, well, we're a family law firm. That's gonna happen. We want 40 to 45% to be ideal clients. We also wanna screen for things like, if you are a family law firm that only does collaborative divorce, and you're getting a lot of calls for people who have high conflict litigation, they're not your ideal client. So 40 to 45% should be your ideal client. What is wrong if we're not there? See our happy little family here? If you're not at 40 to 45%, there are a couple of places to look. Well, let me back up and say this. You need to track not only your overall conversion rate for all clients, but you need to track it by referral source. And actually, we say you should also track it by the type of case it is. So if you are tracking it by referral source, then you can tell where your breakdown is in the system. So for instance, if your professional referral are sending you clients, at least 40 to 45% of which are not your ideal client, then you're not educating your referral sources properly. So let's go back to that thing I told you about meeting with Alexis Neely. I know exactly who Alexis Neely wants as potential clients. I am not going to refer her to divorce firms. I am not going to refer her to family law firms. I'm not going to refer her to tax firms. I am going to refer her to estate planning firms that work with young children. I know this. If you are not getting a high percentage from your professional referral sources, you need to go back and educate them. If it's from an organic search and your qualified rate is down at 10, 15%, you need to look at your website. Is it clear what you do? If they are paid referrals, we sometimes refer to these as subscriptions, so AVO, things like that. You need to go back and edit your profile. This is one of our favorites. In fact, one of the ladies who works with me is kind of a techie, and she talks about pay-per-click, and it's really one of her hot buttons. And I didn't understand what she was saying one day until she had me do it. We have a client in Wyoming who's a DUI attorney, and I wanted to see where she was ranking. So I type in DUI attorney, Wyoming. And I was in Fort Worth, Texas at the time, and I got a whole bunch of pay-per-click ads for attorneys in Fort Worth and Dallas. And I could have clicked on any one of those, and that attorney would have been charged for that referral, right? It's called pay-per-click for a reason. Clients don't always look, they just see, you know, great DUI attorney and click. Pay-per-click is not only targeting the audience you want, but you have to exclude the people you don't. So if you're getting a lot of pay-per-click people from a different jurisdiction or in something that is outside of what you do, then you need to talk to your pay-per-click company about their targeting. Okay, any questions about this first stage and what it's telling you? Gosh, nobody asked questions. We're gonna move through this. Okay, the next thing, the next stage in your sales pipeline is setting the appointment. Your receptionist or intake person should have a list of available appointments. You have your receptionist or whoever it is, your intake person, whatever you want to call them, whoever it is that answered the phone, has determined that they're an ideal client. So we should set an appointment with them. That person needs to know when appointments are available. And you need to make sure that you have times available. If people are waiting 6 weeks to get in to see you for an initial consult, you may need to think about either teaching somebody else on your team how to do consults, or hire a professional salesperson, either in-house or on a contract basis. So we've determined that they're a qualified potential client. Now we want to know what the percentage rate of people is that are setting appointments. And that should be 70 to 80%. Now, let's be very clear, that is not 70 to 80% of the people who call. That is 70 to 80% of the 40 to 45% who are qualified. So if you get 100 phone calls and 45 of them are qualified, hold on, now I need my calculator. So we have 45 times, let's say you're at a 75% rate, you should be setting appointments with about 33, almost 34 of those clients, okay? What if people are qualified and they're not setting appointments? What if you're not at that 70 to 80% rate? Well, you need to do a couple of things. The problem could be that the person answering the phone needs to be better trained about talking about your firm and what you can do, okay? Because they're qualified and they're not booking. These are ideal clients who are actively looking for your services. Make sure that the person who is answering these calls is tracking why they're not setting calls. Because you may find, you know, the most often stated reason is it's going to take too long. Let's go back to that couple that was flying to Europe on Tuesday. If you can't see them for 4 weeks, they're going to go to Europe and be back before you could see them. So that's a problem. Okay, I'm guessing we don't have questions here. Can someone just send me a question so I can make sure they're working? All right, we're going to move on. All right, Julie raised her hand. Yes, it seems to be open. Yep, we're working. Great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Okay. Next. So you have determined that they're qualified. You have set an appointment with them. The next stage is, do they actually show up? Are they coming to either that sales phone call or that in-person consult? Okay, so this is pretty self-explanatory, right? Oh, Rick wants to know what the log sheet would look like. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Can you hold on? And what if multiple people answer the phone? And how often do you want to review, weekly, monthly? All right, Rick, I promise you, I will get to all of that. But let's go back to this. We're going to go through all the different parts, and then I'm going to show you how it actually works. Okay. So, like I said, pretty self-explanatory. Do they show or not show? And you should be at 75 to 80% showing up. This hidden part. Ideal client, they've set an appointment, let's make sure they show. If they're not, you need to go back and look, whoops, sorry, another plane, holiday weekend, resort town. Okay, if they're not showing up, you need to go back and look at the process from the, from your client's point of view. What is it like to be a client? Did they get an email follow-up, a follow-up email confirming their appointment? Did it have the office address and directions? I saw one from one of our clients the other day that had pictures. This is the parking lot. This is the door. Was there a reminder phone call or text the day before confirming that they were still on? Are you easy to find? Is your door marked? Can they see the office address? You know, you kind of laugh at these things, but let me tell you some real life stories. When I was running my father's law firm, we had a suite number on the door, but we did not have the firm name. And we'd have people call and say, wait a minute, I'm here. We're like, yes, we can see you through the glass wall, walk on in. An even more amazing experience, I went to see a client in Pennsylvania one day, and I found the building, I found the parking lot, so far so good. Park the car, lock it, walk up the front steps of the building, and the door's locked. And I'm like, what in the world? And I look for a doorbell and how am I supposed to get in? I'm supposed to be here right now and I can't get in. So I finally grabbed my cell phone and called the office. And the person that answered said, oh, well, if you walk around the side of the building, there's actually an entrance that goes right into our office instead of coming into the public area. Hey, that would have been a great information to know. How many times are your clients giving up in the parking lot because they can't find you? In that case, a sign would have made all the difference in the world. An email saying, just confirming, entrance is around the side. So really think about this. What is it? What is your client experience? This is generally the easiest one to fix. If you've got a lot of no-shows, it's very easy to go in and bump that rate up, and it makes a huge difference in the bottom line of your company. Okay, consult to hire. This is the last one. We've determined that they're a qualified client. They've set an appointment. They've shown up for that initial consultation. Now they're in the room with you or your salesperson, whichever one it is. Do they hire? Couple of things. One, if they don't hire you, find out why not. Because that is really important, because that goes back to your screening and your qualifying. How do you need to change those questions if you keep getting the same thing over and over and over again? Oh, I didn't know a divorce cost more than $2,000. You know what? Put that in your screening, in your qualifying questions, in that script that you have. But you just want to look at this and you want to find out. So where should you be? Initial consult to hire should be 65 to 75%. So that's in the room at the moment. This is the conversion rate that most attorneys quote. I'm going to say 85% of the time when we ask what their conversion rate is. This is the one. But as you can see, it really is only a small part of it. You want clients. If they're not hiring you, what do we need to fix? A couple of things. Probably need to get training for your salesperson, which is probably you. Do you need training? Are you the right person to be doing the sales calls? I've got to tell you, in all honesty, often the attorney is not, for a couple of reasons. One is you've been trained to be an attorney. You haven't been trained to be a salesperson, and those are different skill sets. Two, it's kind of hard to sell yourself, right? You can always sell somebody else easier. So professional salespeople, or I've got some clients that have trained their paralegals or their office manager, and it's made a great difference. But I have one client that we talked to about 10 days ago, and he's a criminal defense attorney. He had been getting a ton of calls, and he just couldn't handle the volume. It's a good problem to have, right? So, and in criminal defense, you got to get back to the person fast, right? You can't wait 3 or 4 days to call them back because they're going down the line to the next person on the list. So, hold on one second. I'm going to stop here because Rick has another question. Do I have some good price-sensitive qualifying questions without offering pricing over the phone? I absolutely do. And when we send you the email after the webinar, you can click and download those. That's included in the qualifying questions, those generic qualifying questions that we have. But so let's go back to this attorney. So he couldn't handle the volume of calls, and he hired a professional salesperson on a contract basis. And the deal is the guy gets paid X amount, same amount for every case that he converts. Does not matter what the case value is. This gets around those bar rules of you can't fee share. He's not getting a percentage, he's getting a flat fee. Completely legal, and I do believe every single jurisdiction. So he trains this guy some and says, okay, Mondays are my busiest days. You can handle some of the calls on Monday and I'll handle some of the calls on Monday. And what he discovered was that the guy is converting at a higher rate than the attorney was, which is just absolutely amazing. So it is incredible what he can do. So the attorney's not doing sales calls anymore, which is great because it frees him up and gives him time to do everything that he needs to do. And he's getting more clients because he's got a professional doing it. So if you're not ready to hire a professional, that's fine, but get yourself some training. It is a very different skill set from everything you were taught in law school. All right, so we've talked about the conversion rate, call to qualified client, 40 to 45%. Qualified to set, 70 to 80. Appointment set to appointment show, 75 to 80. Initial consult to hire, 65 to 75. So what is a realistic overall conversion rate from first call to hire or die? It's going to be somewhere between 13 to 22%. And I know that this sounds low, but there are multiple places in there where you can make small adjustments in what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're putting online, the way you're answering the phone, qualifying questions that will make a difference. All right, so what information do I need to track to find my conversion rate? So Rick, we're starting to go with what you were looking for. First, you need to get their name, their contact phone or email, the date of the initial call. Like, we need to know when they called. The type of case or matter it is. Even if you are a family law attorney and it's a DUI, like, we need to know because that means they are not a qualified client. We need to know their referral source. And let's be really specific here. You need to know their referral source, not, oh, the internet. You need to know if they found you on Avvo or if it was a pay-per-click or organic search, okay? You need to know if they're qualified or not. We've talked about that. You need to, if they book a sales call, you need to make a note that they booked a sales call and the date of that call, right? Got to know when it is. We've got to track these things. You need to determine whether or not they show for that phone call. And then the ultimate, did they convert, right? Because what we want is for it to rain clients. Okay, Rick, how do we track all this information? So you can track it a couple of different ways. The easiest way is, pencil and a legal pad, start making a list. I think it's easier to track it on a spreadsheet so that, you can get a little bit more information. It's not quite so manual. And I'll show you one that we use with our clients in just a minute. There is also software that will do that. Infusionsoft will do it. Lexicata will do it. Infusionsoft is kind of the Rolls Royce. Lexicata is a little bit more entry level. By the way, for those of you that are using Lexicata, 3 weeks, about a month ago, they put out a new release that will give you better data and reporting. So if you haven't checked out the reporting since they rolled that out, it's much better. A warning with using software. When you implement software, you have to put a lot of thought into it. And you have to think your client's journey all the way through all your different softwares. You need to track, you need to think how your client's going to track. You need to think how your client's money is going to track. Because, I'm a CFO. This is really important. So you've got to put thought into how it interacts, how your client interacts, and how your software interacts. So for instance, when you decide what kind of cases you're going to track, if you're a family law firm, because we're going to talk about a family law firm in a minute, if it's a divorce with children, a divorce without children, if it's a post-judgment issue, if it's an adoption, like what are those basic cases that you handle all the time? You need to be tracking those in the initial call. You need to put it in a bucket. Those same exact buckets need to be in your practice management software, and those same buckets need to be in your revenue section of your P&L, okay? Because until we track it all the way through, we can't get good information. I can't tell you how much you're spending on your divorce no children, how much it costs you to get a case that is divorced with no children, if I don't know how much money you're making from them. Okay, so we actually have a group program, which some of you, sorry, another plane, which some of you may or may not know about. And we taught a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and it was a big hit because we gave them the spreadsheet that we use with our clients, and we taught them how to use it. And it was such a big hit. We had some clients that sat in on it too. But it was such a big hit that we thought we need to do something similar but a little different and offer it to people. So we're going to do that. It is an online workshop, and we're going to quickly go over all the conversion rates like we have today. We're going to give you a spreadsheet to track it and teach you how to use the spreadsheet, teach you how to read it, teach you how to figure out what it's telling you. It's simple, it's easy, it's a very inexpensive way to track your conversion rates. So the other thing that we want to do is we want to go over what are those qualifying questions. Who's your ideal client? What are the questions that we need to be asking to make sure that we're getting the right people? So if you are interested in that, it is July 20th, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. And we are rolling it out. We're doing a price of $500, but if you're on the webinar today, we'll do a price of $299. And we're going to hold this price. I've said it 42 times on this call. We're coming into a holiday weekend, so I'll tell you what, I'll hold it until the holiday on Wednesday. So that price is good from now through next Wednesday. So anybody want to see the spreadsheet and how we track and what it can tell us? Oh, if you're interested in that workshop, go to, hold on, I have to check, cathcap.com, cathcap.com/marketing ROI workshop. cathcap.com/marketing ROI workshop. And you can get more information and sign up. Okay, so bear with me. I am going to try to go to a different screen and look at this worksheet. Okay, and there it is. So I'm going to walk you through it pretty quickly. First thing we do is we have, this is a divorce firm, we call it Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. We know what their client mix is, their case mix is, and we know what their referral sources are. These are the only options that they have on referral sources. The next tab is data. These are all the people who have called Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe this year, right? You're going to see all those different pieces of information we talked about needing to have. Here they are. The first contact date, their name, their contact information, whether it's a phone number or an email. Client mix, that's, you know, the matter type. Referral source. How they got to us. Now, here's the thing. On our spreadsheet, we made these drop downs, okay? Because if you type divorce with children on a spreadsheet, and then the next time somebody does it, it's divorce W children or divorce with kids, you're not going to have accurate information. We've got the sales call date, and this is kind of fancy because this tells you how many days between the initial contact and the sales call date it was. So you'll notice most of these 3, 4, 5 days. We've got a 10 days out. We've got a 1 day out. We've got 20 way down here, if you want to see your clients in a certain amount of time, it's really easy to look here and see how long it's taking to get them in. If they don't book a call, you'll notice out here in column A, it tells you how many days since this person called that they've been open. All right, if we keep going over here, were they qualified, yes or no, right? Your receptionist, your intake person, whoever it is that answered the phone, ask the qualifying questions. They were or were not qualified. Did they show up for the sales call? And then did they engage? So you'll notice this person down here, yes, they were qualified. Yes, they showed up for the sales call, and you've got 123 there. That means that they have not told you yet whether they're going to engage or not for 123 days. And then you've got date of engagement. And then further on out here, you've got days to engage from the sales call. So you sent them a retainer agreement on the 5th, and they signed it on the 10th. That's 5 days. Okay, so the other thing that we like to track is the relationship value. You know, was this case worth 5,000 or 10,000 or 100,000? You want to track that. Okay, so in this spreadsheet, you can see, even if you just set this up yourself and it doesn't have all the fancy things like the age days open or number of days to engage from sales call, all those blue columns, you can set up pretty easily in a worksheet. Of course, I like this one better, but you know, that's just me. So here's how you actually use it. So Rick had a question. Let's go back to your question, Rick. What if multiple people are doing this? There are a couple of things you can do. You can either A, have multiple, everybody can have their own spreadsheet, and then you keep a master spreadsheet, and at the end of the month, you pull everybody's information, you dump it into the master. You can have one spreadsheet on a shared drive that everyone can access as they go along. It's your call. But that's how I would address the multiple people answering the phone question. All right, so let's go look at what it tells you. So this is the leads trending section. This is leads to qualified, qualified to sales call scheduled. Now you'll notice there aren't any calls showing. That's because I have not used this handy dandy little slider up here. But I can do things like April, and here it is. But let's start with year to date, because I think that might be the best thing to look at. So this is, oh, whoops, it's only March through July. Hold on. Let's get January. Well, all right. The hot computer is not happy. Okay, so now we have January through July. And it's showing, you can see here, we had 56 phone calls year to date. 39 of them were qualified, and 37 of them scheduled a sales call. We've got some anomalies here. For instance, under Google AdWords, we had someone schedule a sales call who wasn't qualified. All right, so some people would ask why this is a problem. Well, it's a problem because, let's face it, you don't want to waste your time talking to people who aren't qualified clients. We were working with the client at one point, and great guy. He had a lead source, generated a ton of leads, like a huge number of leads. And it was, under here, it would be listed as subscriptions. And because subscriptions, Avo, things like that, you know, you pay a monthly fee and they kind of advertise for you. So he was getting a huge number of cases from it. I kept telling him that that was not a profitable way for him to get cases. And he's like, no, 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 I get all these leads and I get these cases. I'm like, yeah, but you've gotten 18 cases over the past couple of years. This is how much you paid to advertise on that site. And so his cost, and I put this in one of the emails, I don't know, what was it, like $500 or something, which was not outrageous. It wasn't ideal because he had a pretty high case value. However, what he wasn't thinking about was his receptionist that answered the phone spent 30% of her time talking to these people. So that was a third of her salary. So it was about $15,000 a year because she made $45,000 a year. 30% of her time was spent there. So there's another $15,000. So that just upped the cost of those 18 cases by almost $1,000 each. So that's not so great. Then he had a professional salesperson because he had a pretty high volume of cases. 20% of the people who didn't show were those clients. So 20% of his time, he's sitting in a conference room waiting for a client to show up that never comes. Or 20% of his time, 20% of his time was spent sitting in a conference room waiting for people that didn't show. So he made about $60,000 a year. That's another $15,000. So now we're at what, $2,200 per case? That is an outrageous amount for a $10,000 case. You can't spend that much on marketing. So you want to look and make sure that you're not wasting your time booking people in for a sales call that aren't qualified. Just don't waste anybody's time. Let your receptionist, let your intake person, let whoever answers the phone refer them out to a better person. Okay, so as we're looking at this, you see that organized networking events, 50% of the people book calls. 81% book calls from professional referral. We find that to be really common. They know you. The person they're referring knows, likes, and trusts them. So you get some of that, I don't know, we'll call it reflected glory. Print ads, you know, I got to tell you, they're running print ads. They've only gotten one lead from that print ad this year. And that person didn't even schedule a sales call. No more print ads. They're not doing you any good. The subscriptions, you'll notice we had 8 calls, 4 were qualified, 6 scheduled calls. That's a problem. Now, if you look just to the right of that, we also track all of this by client type. So you can see that the vast majority of the 56 calls, 17 were divorced with children. 70% of them were booking sales calls. Only 44% of divorce with no children were booking sales calls. So somewhere in our, either with the person who answered the phone or on our website, there is a problem communicating, and it's probably a difference between what the person who answered the phone said and the website. We're not communicating well about divorce without children. They think we do it. We think we do it. They call us, they talk to the receptionist, and then they don't book a call. Okay? So there's a problem with messaging somewhere there. If you scroll down, you can see the percentage of sales calls scheduled by quarter and by month. So like something was rocking in March. Something was the opposite of rocking in April. Here you can see those percentages on a graph. And then my personal favorite part of this graph is this. These are all the aging leads who were qualified who didn't book a sales call. They're still sitting out there. They're still potential clients. They said, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna have to think about it. Here they are thinking. This is so easy for whoever needs to do follow-up to go in and call Mary Smith, who's been sitting out there now for 164 days, because she first called us on January 15th, and she's divorced with no children from print ad. There's our one print ad person. You can get her to book, and you can keep following up. And look, it's name and phone number. But look at this one. Okay, who in the world forgot to get their name and contact information? That's a problem. Here, we have a call, and they recorded just basically nothing. And on this one, they didn't get name, phone number, type of case, or where they came from. The reason we need to know this is that if we're getting a whole bunch of these, we're getting a whole bunch of people from workshops that aren't booking sales calls, we need to know, because we need to change what we're saying in our workshops. Okay, so we have now booked a sales call, so we need to go to the next tab, which is sales trending. So this is the next part. We have the same slider, right? We can look at January through June. We can back it up and say through May. We can go through July, whatever it is, and it will change. So we had 24 sales calls that showed up. If we go back here and remember, hold on, let me get back over there. Where's my, sorry, it's hard to see in the sunlight. Okay, we go back over here. We actually had 37 scheduled, but only 24 showed up. So that was 64%. So I can tell you right now, we have a problem with the client experience. Somehow in that pipeline, from that time when they say, yes, I want to come, till they actually show up, something's happening. Now, the ones coming from your organized networking are showing up, and the ones coming from your workshop are showing up. And I'm guessing the workshop people are showing up because they've already been to a workshop at your office. But your digital media ads aren't showing, and your people from subscriptions aren't showing. Okay? So that's really interesting. Of the 24 that did show up, 16 engaged. Okay, that's a 66.67% rate. Do you remember where we were supposed to be? We were supposed to be higher than that. We were supposed to be at 75 or 80. So we need to get your salesperson some training. But it's really interesting because they did well with the digital media ads and the subscriptions, and they did well with the organized networking events. But remember, we also track it by type of case. So you can also see, interestingly, we have an adoption that's at 133%. Somebody called and signed up without going through the sales call process. So they're probably a repeat client. They do pretty well with divorce, no children, and custody, but the divorce with children's only at 57%. So how do we need to educate them better on divorce with no children, pre and post-nuptial agreements, and post-judgment modifications to enable them to sell better? Whether it's you, a paralegal, your salesperson, whoever it is, that person needs some training in the room on how to sell. And because we've got such detailed information, we can know if it's an overall problem, they just can't sell very well, or we can pinpoint it and say they don't know how to sell divorce with children. I mean, gosh, that just makes it so much easier. Okay, so just like the other page down at the bottom, it gives you your percent of engaged, and it shows you your percent of sales calls that show up to percent of sales calls that engage, right? So here we had 57% showing, and we had 100% engaging. Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so now let's go over and look at my favorite part, because we have it here too. These are clients that came, or potential clients that had a sales call but didn't engage. And one of the great things is you can change this. You can say, I want to give people 5 days before I start hounding them, and change it. which I could do if my computer were not so hot. It's now not typing. Good. Anyway, you can change that to 5 days, and it will only show the people that are 5 days past their sales call, or 10 days, or 15 days, or whatever you want to set. But again, it makes it so easy for whoever it is that's in charge of following up to just pull this up and say, okay, I need to call Jay Stone. His phone number is 555-1212. I need to talk to him about his post-judgment modification. Done. Okay, so that's the spreadsheet. And that's actually really, we're going to give you this spreadsheet in the workshop, and we're going to teach you how to use it. Does anybody have any more questions? Oh, hold on, whole bunch of questions. Wait a minute, where'd they go? They should have popped up. All right. Nope, I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, no? Okay. So that really is about it. Oh, wait, here we go. Okay. Nope, never mind. It was all about the fact that my computer dropped off. I do apologize for that. Okay, so we've talked about tracking the information. And I think that really is about it. Any other questions? Yes, no? I would change the screen if I knew how. There we go. Okay. So, if you have questions, this is the time to ask. But we've talked about what your entire conversion cycle is, what your rate should be at each point along the way. And like I said, if you want some generic qualifying questions, we're going to send you an email afterwards. You can click the link and download that. And yes, Rick, it talks about how to nicely talk about money without quoting a price, because we all know, especially firms that bill hourly, you can't predict that. But you know what you can predict? You know what the minimum is going to be. And then if anyone is interested in the workshop, it's Friday, July 20th, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's $2.99. Go to cathcap.com/marketing ROI workshop. And in that workshop, we are going to give you the spreadsheet. We're going to teach you how to use it. We're going to do some more analysis to teach you how to read it and what it's telling you. And we're going to work on custom qualifying questions for your firm. Okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I guess we're done for the day. Last chance for questions? Anyone? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. It was great to, well, I guess I didn't see you. It was great to be seen by you. And as always, if you have any questions, give us a call. Our email address, my email address is brooke@cathcap.com. Our website is cathcap.com. And our phone number is 817-338-1011. Thanks so much. Have a great day.